Marinaro, the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk. We look back on CF Montreal's 2-0 win versus Charlotte FC last week at home in Montreal. We'll also talk about the MLS All-Star Game versus Arsenal. Messi Mania has hit Miami. We'll talk about Busquets and Alba with Inter Miami as well. Fernando Alvarez on the radar of CF Montreal, according to Fabrizio Romano. Our Canadians women's national team, a disappointing draw versus Nigeria. And we look forward to the Leagues Cup game versus Pumas tomorrow night in Montreal. All of that and more. I'm Marinaro. Jeremy Filosa joins me. He's coming up right here on the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. CF Montreal Talk.
Here's the chance. They've got the goal. Absolutely incredible. Cameron Porter delivers the goal to send Montreal Impact into the CONCACAF Champions League semi-final.
The sickest CF Montreal podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro along with Jeremy Filosa. Jeremy, how are you, buddy?
How about yourself?
Very, very well. Thank you very much. It seems like it was a long, long time ago, but it was less than a week ago that CF Montreal was able to end their scoreless streak at 4 games without a goal. They got a couple of goals last week versus Charlotte and a huge win.
Yeah, they got a huge win, and especially they got 2 big pieces back. And Tony, if you look at certain of the stats, and I don't have them here with me, but during that 4-game stretch that Montreal was without Mathieu Choinière, they didn't win a single game, 0. And if you look at the goals that this team, I think that the CF Montreal this year has taken 4 beatings, we'll call them like that, and 3 out of the 4 times Camacho was not in the lineup. He was also not in the lineup the week before this win. So I think those 2 guys added a lot. And I'll say the middle of the park for me, Tony, was the major change. I think Piet was much more active on the field than Wanyama usually is. I thought that duo did very well, Choinière and Piet. We've seen them together do well also under Wilfred Nancy last year. And I think that was the number one factor why they were so good last week at home.
Jeremy, it's not complicated. CF Montreal's top 3 players this year have been Mathieu Choinière, Rudy Camacho, and Jonathan Sirois. And it's not even close.
I agree.
That's it. That's all.
I agree. And actually, to tell you the truth, we spoke to Lozada this morning, confirmed to us that Sirois will be continuing as the starting keeper during the Leagues Cup. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But, we asked him, is this an opportunity for Pantemis to come in? And we'll talk about all the implications, but I do understand why Lozada wants to start this competition with his best.
Jeremy, look, I know that at one point it didn't look good for James Pantemis a year ago with Breza being, the designated keeper pretty much throughout the middle of the season. And then down the stretch, Pantemis was able to get his job back and be the man of confidence for Wilfred Nancy. I know things change fast in football, and I might regret saying this, but because I'm a man of many opinions and I don't hold back, I'm going to say it anyway. I think it's James Pantemis and CF Montreal. I think it's over, Jeremy. I think it's done.
Yeah, listen, I mean, for Pantemis' sake, he needs to find a job elsewhere, maybe in Europe, probably somewhere. This guy needs to play. That's for sure.
Correct.
And, there's just been, every year, it's something. He had those 2 years where he was playing in CPL, then the season was stopped, then he came back, injuries, stuff like that. Now he finally gets the opportunity to be the first keeper. He gets hurt. So it's just, and there were also many years at the beginning where he wasn't playing at all because they didn't have a reserve team and the CPL didn't exist. So there wasn't nowhere for him to play. So there were years that were burnt and lost there. Unfortunately, I think retrospect being what it is, Pantemis probably would have been better served in another club 6 or 7 years ago, to tell you the truth. He'd probably
You're probably right. Look, it's not complicated. A, Jonathan Sirois has been too good.
Yep.
B, he's younger. C, you can get him cheaper. Not that James Pantemis costs you a lot of money. That's not the case. And D, like you just said, Pantemis looking towards a World Cup in 3 years from now. You know what happens if he stays here?
Yeah.
If anyone gets the chance to be on that team, it's going to be Sirois, not him.
No, he needs to move. He needs to move.
He needs to move.
Here, and you know what? It's just not ideal to have on a team like this 2 young keepers, Tony. I mean, young. I mean, James is not young anymore, but keepers that are still in that stage in their career where they want to develop, they want to play. You know, for years, Montreal had Evan Bush and Eric Kronberg. Bush knew he was going to get almost every start. Kronberg knew his role. He was the second keeper. He didn't have a problem with that. But when you have 2 young keepers that are hungry, it's a problem.
And when one isn't playing, that goalkeeper usually ends up playing in the cup games. And when James not playing in the League's Cup, obviously it doesn't bode very well. Anyway, let's go back to last week's win. You want the strikers to score goals. They did. That's a huge sigh of relief. That's a huge load off of everyone's shoulders, especially Opoku, who breaks the ice with his new team, and Ofer. They both score big goals at big moments. And CF Montreal, no problem versus Charlotte.
Yeah, no, it was a good home win. One of their better performances from A to Z over 90 minutes. I don't think Charlotte had much to give. And what I really liked, and I got to say this, Tony, is in a situation where Charlotte wasn't showing anything, and it was pretty much locked up, not early, but, in the second half, you could see that it was locked up. Hernan Lozada tried some stuff out, and that's great. That's fantastic. You tried a guy like Zach Brault-Guillard as a winger on the right-hand side. I thought he showed some nice stuff, and I think that the coach won't hesitate to throw him in there if he needs him, in that situation, not only as a right back, but maybe as a right winger. He gave some, I like the fact that he's giving Vilsaint minutes week in and week out now. That's awesome. I thought last week, he showed more flashes in the amount of time that he was on the field. So that shows me that he's a player that's gaining confidence. Milevich also got some minutes, also showed us some interesting things. So I thought it was a good moment to try out some things.
Yeah.
And we got some answers. We had a few answers.
And look, I know Vilsaint hasn't played a lot of minutes. Mind you, last week he played 30, came in at around the 63-minute mark, if memory serves me well. But I remember somebody telling you that Jeremy, I think he's the best 10 on the team. And I know we haven't seen him in that role.
Yeah.
But he tried to find Zachary Brault-Guillard on 2 occasions. And I think you got a glimpse, and so did everyone else, of what he can do. Definitely. This guy is more than just a Forrest run with space ahead of you. This guy is more than just a guy with the ball in the box and go try and strike. He sees the game. He's got good passing ability. He's got good vision. He's got good playmaking ability. He can play as a 10. I've seen him play there before.
Tony, the more he plays, the more minutes he plays, the more he'll show stuff, and then we'll have information, and the coach will have more information. And at some point, the field doesn't lie, right? If you're doing well, you'll eventually get, the minutes that you deserve.
Yeah, I had the information a long time ago. Anyway, all right, okay. Let's move on, and we'll talk about Messi Mania. Messi Mania has hit Miami. Not only Lionel Messi, but of course Busquets. They were there at the opening ceremony. Jordi Alba has since joined. There's a couple of young players that have joined. There's talk of even pursuing Luis Suarez. Michelle Kaufman, who covers Inter Miami, by the way, for the Miami Herald, has told us not to pay attention to the Iniesta rumors, that they're unfounded. But Jeremy, although some people aren't happy, I mean, if you're not an Inter Miami fan, you're not happy with what Inter Miami is doing, but it's brilliant. Their Instagram account, they have more followers than some of the biggest teams in the world, any sport. Yeah. And their value of about 500 million US is set to double at least in the next year. So yeah, you know what? They'll end up paying out, I don't know, between Messi and friends, 70, 80, 90 million, whatever it is. But if their value doubles in 1 year, that's an increase of $500 million.
Yeah, and you know what? David Beckham is not stupid. I mean, imagine he put $25 million down, him and his partners, to buy this team. Now it's worth 500 million. You see franchises like LAFC have like just exploded to over $1 billion by doing what? Investing in their product, investing in their stadium, investing in good players. And, someone told me that, Forbes will basically give you, for every dollar you spend, 4 times. Every $1 million you spend on your franchise, Forbes will give you 4 times that in terms of value. So, I mean, you want to make money? That's how you make money. You make big deals. You bring in big players. Inter Miami, as you mentioned, now has more Instagram followers than the Dallas Cowboys, than the New York Yankees. I mean, who would have thought that? It seems impossible, but that's the reality. That's what's going on. All eyes are on Messi right now. There were 200 media members for his first practice. 200. I mean, they've had to tell some of the local podcasters who have been covering this team from day one, and in many cases have been the only ones there covering this team, sorry, we don't have any space for you in the press box for Messi's first game.
This is very unfortunate, by the way. All right. So we're podcasters. All right. Yeah. And I know that, you work for a radio station, 98.5 FM. But let's just say I'm a podcaster. I talk about this team 2 to 3 times a week. I tweet about this team 2 to 3 times a week. I've been covering this team for over 20 years. CF Montreal is going to get Messi. They're going to get Alba, and they're going to get Busquets tomorrow. All of a sudden, everyone who hasn't paid attention to them since they entered the league in 2012 now is going to care. They're going to show up, and they're going to tell me to stay home.
Probably.
I wouldn't like that very much. And I think this is very unfortunate because you know what? When you make it, you got to remember those who were there through the thick and thin.
Now, I understand, but you look at a guy like Frank Panizo, who's been there now for a couple of years. I think he still has his press pass. I think, it also, it's something about, how many followers you have, how many years you've been around, what's your notoriety, how many people do you reach? So I think that you have to pick and choose, unfortunately, and that's the situation that we're in right now. It's a little bit unfortunate, but that's what it is. That's the boom.
What did you think of the unveiling of Messi and Busquets that drawed over 3.5 billion viewers?
Yeah, 3.5 billion over Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Apple TV, YouTube. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And to see that they had over 20,000 fans in the stadium, even in the rain. I don't remember a player ever getting signed to a team, any sport, and having so many fans turn up for this type of event. I thought the MLS did it well. There's just one thing that I'm worried
Jeremy,
about.
did you hear the story about Campagna? Did you see this?
No, go ahead. Maybe I'm not sure now.
So Campagna, because Jeremy, we're not only fans, the players are fans too. I mean, they're on cloud 9. They're practicing with Lionel Messi. They're getting changed with Lionel Messi. They're in meetings with Lionel Messi, and soon they're about to play
he got
a
him
game
the
with Lionel Messi. La Campagna on the team's WhatsApp text message asked if anybody had any extra tickets. Yeah. And Messi responded, "How many do you need?" And the players were saying that they didn't even know that Messi had been on the group chat, had joined the group chat. And so Messi goes out. He's known Campagna for a couple of days. He goes out and he gets Campagna all the tickets he needs. And this guy, Jeremy, if you read some of the quotes, I mean, they're going up to him and he's saying, "Listen, I'm here. I'm in Miami. I want to win, and I want to, win games, and I want to win a championship." But they're asking him about him and the group, and he says, "I just want to be in. I'm just a regular player. I'm just like every other player on this team. I'm part of the team. That's it." And the players have fallen in love with him already. You see images of him and Joseph Martinez chatting it up, of course, and you already have a feeling that Messi's going to give Martinez a couple of great balls.
Absolutely.
It's going to be amazing. It really is going to be amazing. Getting back to the opening ceremony, I think there was something that bugged you, maybe?
No. It was all good. The only thing I would say is that I'm worried a little bit about the time frame, Tony, because he basically started training on Monday. This guy hasn't played a game for what, almost 2 months now. Yeah. There's a reason why we have training camp. There's a reason why there's a buildup towards playing a first game. I don't think Messi plays more than 15 minutes tonight. I mean, if they're smart, because Tony, they can't risk it. They can't. There's no way that you send this guy out there and say, "All right, man, you're starting this game after practicing 3-4 times." It doesn't make any sense. If this guy goes down with an injury because you weren't careful, it would be an absolute disaster.
Yeah, we already know that he and Busquets are going to be off the bench. All right. So most case, he's going to get 45 minutes. I would tend to think that he's probably going to get about 20, 22, but we'll have to wait and see. And Jeremy, I mean, I don't worry about him. Look, there's going to be an adjustment, by the way, because people have to understand it's true. He's the best player in the world and he's playing in the MLS. And by that logic, it should be a walk in the park. But there will be an adjustment because Messi is used to playing in leagues that are tactically very good. And tactically, you just don't lunge at players. Not everyone runs towards a player, one player, two players, three players, four players. You play at a different pace to preserve yourself. So in the MLS, obviously, they're not as tactically advanced as some of the best leagues in the world, with all due respect to the MLS. So there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment because it'll kind of seem a little bit more disorganized compared to organized soccer he's played. But once he's able to figure all that out, and it's not going to take him very long, because I've never seen a player who tracks better and takes more information than Lionel Messi. If you would have a camera just on Messi and you would watch and focus just Messi to see the amount of times that Messi looks front, left, right, over one shoulder and over the other shoulder, he's constantly taking information. It's not going to take him long. Once he's able to figure out the rhythm, the pace, and figure it all out, this guy's going to be the maestro that he is. It's going to be amazing.
Listen, hopefully, within a few days, few games, he'll be able to start, and he'll be able to start putting his imprint on this. But listen, everybody's investing big time on this. If this works out, Tony, the league is going to push other teams to try and make plays for big players and bring them in, because even though Don Garber said a few years back, we're not a league where players are gonna come here to retire. This goes beyond any normalcy. So Look, my son.
You talked about timing before.
My son completely lost interest this year because of the type of soccer that Montreal has been playing this year. So he's disconnected. But tonight he's like, Dad, tonight we're gonna watch Inter Miami. He wants to watch the game.
Yeah. Jeremy, you talked about timing. The only thing, the timing's always good when you go out and sign Lionel Messi. The timing could have been a little bit better if they would have been in their new stadium, of course. So they're in a 20,000 seat stadium in Fort Lauderdale. Yeah. So in that respect, by the time Messi's all said and done with Inter Miami. But did you see the Argentine Federation is opening up a facility in Florida? Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah. The Argentinian Federation is opening up a facility, and this team is going after young Argentine players too, or they're going to be interested. And they want to accommodate Messi. You know what this is going to mean? The second Lionel Messi is going to pick up the phone, even when he's no longer going to be a player with Inter Miami. Let's say 2.5 years from now, he decides to hang him up. If he wants in, he's going to be an owner of that team. Basically, he can exercise whatever he wants, but they'd offer him an ownership. But this guy's going to pick up the phone and he's going to say, go play for Inter Miami. Who's not going to go? No. Who's not going to go now? Who's not going to go in 2.5 years from now?
You already have Beckham there. So, all the reasons to go are there for sure.
Here's the bad news.
Yeah.
You want to know what the bad news is? The bigger Miami is getting, the faster some other teams are going to follow suit.
Of course.
And CF Montreal, who was a small fish in a big pond before this, is going to get small very fast. Now, and I know that they have the means to keep up.
Of course.
But it's a couple of years now they've chosen not to, and their strategy is to go after players at a transfer fee of $1 million or less on loan for nothing, or develop, play, and then sell. You're right. There's a way that Inter Miami's making money. They're bringing in a bunch of stars, and their franchise will double in value within a year. On the opposite end of the spectrum, CF Montreal, they have their philosophy to make money. It's not spend money, buy players with GAM, um, and or pick up players at $1 million or less and play them for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then try and sell them.
Well, listen, okay, Tony, you remember when Toronto FC went out and spent out all that money to get Jovinko and company, Bradley, and you remember Saputo's comments, right?
And Altidore.
He was not in Altidore. He was not happy and said, "This is not going to drive our league in the right direction, and don't expect me to compete with these guys because I'm not going to do it." Can you imagine what he's thinking now?
I'll tell you what he's thinking. You ready what he's thinking?
Go.
And he won't say it publicly, I don't think, but he's thinking that the league is getting too big for CF Montreal. He's thinking, what?
Okay.
Jeremy, if I know and you know, I can guarantee you that he knows.
Okay. So if that's his philosophy and he's scared of this and not encouraged by this, well, maybe it's time to move on for him. Honestly, I mean, if he was really upset when Toronto FC made all those moves way back when. This is completely at another level. So if he doesn't want to, and now
Jeremy,
there's been a big meeting.
You're talking nonsense now.
Oh, Tony. I mean, now there's been a meeting on Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Owners have met, and they want to simplify the way that they build rosters in the MLS.
Yes.
Okay. So I wouldn't be surprised, Tony, if the MLS implements, if it's not right now, very soon, a floor, and say you got to spend at least this amount of money, because and at least Saputo's reinvesting the GAM money, because he would be allowed, if you wanted to, Tony, to take that GAM money and say, I'll just take a check and put it in his pocket.
Yes,
so
I understand that.
Good news is he's been at least reinvesting the GAM money. The rumor that we've been hearing, we'll talk about it a little bit later, about a player possibly coming to Montreal. There's $1 million transfer fee apparently on the table. That is possibly GAM money. You can't take GAM money and ask the league for $1 million in cash because you want to give it to a player in a transfer fee that comes from another league. So we can talk about all that.
With all due respect to you, and as much as I love you, and I do, a couple of minutes ago you said something that was nonsense. Let me elaborate on what you said. You said, well, if the league is getting too big, it's time to move on. So I'm going to ask a question to you.
Yeah.
Jeremy Filosa, you're the owner of CF Montreal.
Yes.
You're looking what Inter Miami's doing, and they brought in Messi.
Yeah.
They brought in Alba. They brought in Busquets. And all of a sudden, the league is in front of everyone's eyes, in everyone's ears. And all of a sudden, the credibility around this league is 1,000 times more today than it was a month ago. Okay? And franchises are going to be going up. Messi is going to be playing possibly in every stadium in the MLS over the next couple of years. Okay? So franchises are all going to go up. The notoriety of the league is going to go up. The credibility of the league is going to go up. The revenues are going to go up. Apple, Adidas, this, that. Marketing possibilities for everyone. Okay? Let's say expansion closes in 3 or 4 years. Okay? If you want to sell your team then, if you want to, because there's no other way to get into the league, and by the time that's going to be the case and the value of the franchises, do you know how much more money you can make? So I'm going to ask you again, Jeremy, if you were the owner of this team, and there's different options, there's continued to remain owner for the longest time. And of course, that is our wish, because we want to keep on talking about this team because we love it. Or it's too big, I got to sell now, or let me wait, and then when expansion is over.
I understand what you're saying, but the league at some point has to take a stance and say, listen, we can't have owners in this league that basically only exist because of allocation money. They're basically living. Some of them you can even pay your whole roster if you want, if you have enough allocation money, only with league money.
Yeah, but Jeremy,
you're not investing any money from your pocket.
Jeremy, it's no different than any other league in the world. And I know that GAM and TAM doesn't exist in England, in Spain, in Italy, and in France.
Yeah, it's
but there's organizations that play in those respective leagues that do just this, Jeremy. They have, they develop, they play, and they sell. That's what the Sassuolos of this world have done. That's what the Empolis of this world have done.
Yeah.
That's what the Udineses of this world have done. Unfortunately, none of them ever won championships. I get it.
It's different in the MLS also because the league is run by the MLS office. So you don't want any teams basically surviving and living and thriving off GAM money. You want owners to dip into their own pockets sometimes to contribute to the pool, of this league. Anyways, we're getting off topic now.
We're getting off topic. And besides, I mean, who would buy this team locally? I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, nobody's interested.
Anybody who has half a brain, but it's hard to find people with half a brain. Like the same people who were saying that buying the Expos for $250 million 20 years ago was a lot of money. Today they're worth $1.5 billion, but whatever.
Jeremy, when you get involved in sports, you have to love the product. You have to love the sport.
Yeah.
And who in this city that has money loves the sport that wants to get involved in this venture? You have to love the sport. If you don't love the sport, it's not happening. Forget it. So, all right, okay. On that note, you were talking about Fernando Alvarez. Let's get to him because Fabrizio Romano earlier today tweeted that things are heating up between CF Montreal and U20 Colombian international Fernando Alvarez, a 19-year-old left-footed center back for about $1 million. Jeremy, this is a transfer fee. The number, anyway, that makes sense. This is what CF Montreal is looking at. They're looking at players 20 years old or younger, a transfer fee of $1 million or less, some international experience with, resale. This is what they're looking at.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, there's a couple of things there. Yeah. So he's 19 years old. He's young. They can get him for $1 million. As I mentioned, if they have GAM money left over, they can ask the league for $1 million in cash to be able to pay that money to Pachuca. From what we're understanding, there's also a deal in place for an eventual sale of the player. This might mean that maybe a guy like Thorkildsen is on his way out. Camacho's on the last year of his contract. If they don't renew him for next year, is this the guy that's going to be coming in? Also, they've been lacking some left-footed center backs on this team because a lot of times you have a right-footed center back playing on the left side. We can talk about Corbo or even Campbell. We're also told
that could be the case. If Camacho moves on, Corbo could end up going to center back, and a player like this could end up going to left center back.
Possibly. I hope they bring Camacho back, but that's just me because I think he's an integral part of this team. I think we should keep him on the long term, maybe even eventually after his career, he could stay with the staff or whatever.
Jeremy, there's no chance they're bringing in this guy to take over for Camacho if Camacho would leave. He's way too young, and that's way too important a position.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of Louis Binks when he came in, and Louis ended up staying for less than a year. That might be the type of situation for this player here. We're also told that he can play left back. We know that Lassiter is not a natural left-footed wing back. He's more of a winger, so they may want to play him at that position. Yeah, it's a type of transfer that makes sense for Montreal.
Very disappointing. Oh, by the way, we have a chart if we can. Let me see if I can bring on the glasses here so I could read it to you. All right, okay. You know what? Maybe I'll look at it from my phone. It'll probably be easier because the eyesight is going at a certain age. All right, okay. Fernando Alvarez. Basically, the chart compares them to other players playing the position. Interceptions per 90 minutes, he's at 94. Number of defensive duels won, he's at 94. And precision of his passes, he's at 73. Precision of his long passes or long crosses, he's at 82. And so precision of his short passes, he's at 94. He's got some pretty big numbers. Where he's actually struggling a little bit would be in terms of lateral passes, would be in terms of some of his passes going back, in terms of some of his passes going wide. But the numbers are pretty interesting in terms of possession numbers as well, and so anyways, they're pretty good numbers. He's a promising player.
Very good. Listen, I think we only have a couple of minutes left, and I want to get to the Women's World Cup and Leagues Cup.
Yes.
two big subjects. So let's dive right into
yes,
it.
Yes, we will. Born in USA, by the way, so he wouldn't
Okay,
count
yeah.
as an international player. Okay, go ahead. The Canadians women's national team, disappointing result, ranked 7th versus 40th ranked Nigeria. Nigeria.
Yep.
I said Nigeria. I don't know why. Nigeria. Okay. It's a draw.
Yeah, it's a draw, unfortunately. I mean, I don't think Canada did enough, unfortunately. It's not even about the goals. It's about the scoring chances. For me, were not enough. Only 3 shots on target. Again, not enough. You have that golden opportunity with the PK that's given after going to VAR. Unfortunately, Christine St. Clair cannot put it at the back of the net. I think she'd be a little bit disappointed with the way she took that PK. And some people are arguing maybe it shouldn't be up to her to take those PKs anymore. Anyways, that being said, it's not as if they didn't have, the chance or the opportunity to get it done later on. The possession was there, over 65%. But at the end of the day, it's a 1-1 draw, and it's very unfortunate because now you're going against the Republic of Ireland. You got to travel. You got a 4.5-hour flight. That's going to be very complicated. Then you're playing against the host country, Australia, which is probably going to be a very, very tough game. So they've put themselves behind the 8 ball really early in this tournament, unfortunately.
They really have. Yes, you're right about that. And, look, Sinclair is or has been an amazing goal scorer. But at one point, you just, Julia Grosso kicked the deciding penalty kick. And I understand they're different players, and I understand that one's a midfielder, and I understand that one is either a striker or maybe even a false 9 at this stage of her career. But Julia Grosso kicked the game-winning penalty a couple of years ago, of course, at the Olympics to win gold. And she goes on to play in Italy for Juventus, and she's the best midfielder in the league. But then again, sometimes it's up to the player who feels it, that wants to go up and take it, Jeremy, right? And maybe Christine felt it, maybe nobody else did.
Yeah, and you know what? The foul was on her. She called for it as soon as it happened, and it was a foul. And, we thought that there was an opportunity there for her to give a lot of confidence to her team. Unfortunately, I found that the shot was lacking strength. It looked like it was a little bit predictable with the way that she opened up her leg rather quickly. And it was not in the corners, right? So
no.
Listen, Greg, you got to give credit to the Nigerian keeper. I think she's one of the best keepers in the world. I think she plays for Paris, if I'm not mistaken. So, but yeah, this is a tie that's unfortunately might end up biting them in the behind, in a couple of weeks' time when everything is all said and done, to see, who gets through and who goes out of the group and who doesn't.
You have the middle of the net, you got the far corner, and this shot is in between both. And if the goalkeeper guesses the wrong way, it's going to go in. But if the goalkeeper guesses the right way, this shot gets stopped all the time. In a couple of minutes, Leagues Cup, CF Montreal versus Pumas.
Yeah, so listen, just to explain people what Leagues Cup is, this is a competition. It's a new competition. It's a World Cup style competition. So we have all the teams from MLS and Liga MX involved. Every group has 3 teams. In Montreal's team group, we have Puma. We have seen images on social media. They've arrived. They are in Montreal. They are very early in their season, so they're not at 100% of their capabilities. There's also DC United. The first 2 teams will go to the knockout stages. And just to let people know and understand, because of the way that Montreal ended last season and they were 3rd in the MLS behind LAFC and Philadelphia, as long as this tournament keeps going and they don't face one of those 2 teams, they will be playing at home. If I'm Joey Saputo, I go down to the coach's office and I say, Coach, I understand there's playoffs, but even if we make it as an 8th or 9th seed, maybe we get 1 home game. That's it. Here, as long as we win, we keep playing at home. We keep filling the stadium. We're going to make more money. This is an absolutely unbelievable opportunity for Montreal to generate more revenue at home, to play all these home games. You never have this type of opportunity to play this type of tournament and play most of your games at home. So it's going to be extremely interesting from our vantage point. Let's see how well they can do. Hernando Lozada said this morning he doesn't expect to see many changes in the starting lineup because of the way things went last week against Charlotte. Lassi Lapalainen is good enough to be back, at least on the bench for this game. That's good news. And it will be Jonathan Sirois in front of the net again tomorrow night. So very excited for this. And apparently they're expecting quite a few Pumas fans to be in the stadium. So it should make for a great atmosphere.
So I guess we can forget about some of those experiments that you wanted to see, knowing now the context and that, you want to win these games.
Yeah,
Jeremy, we'll talk to you again next time. Jeremy Filosa of 98.5 FM and EMFC Radio, my partner in crime. Thank you, Jeremy. Marinaro, I want to give a shout out to the U16 girls team of AS Laval. Let's bring up a picture of them if we can. All right, okay. Let's bring up a picture of them, of the team. Do we have the picture of the team? We don't? Okay.
Thank you, Tony, for your support.
Okay. All right. It is pretty sick. Okay. Unfortunately, that's not a picture of the team. That's a video of the team, but it's okay. They've gone to the Gothia Cup in Sweden. They sent over a team picture that they took a couple of days ago. The opening ceremonies, there was over 51,000 people. They've won all of their games Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Today, they won 3 of them. Today being Friday, and tomorrow on Saturday, they're playing in the final. And there you have it, announcing, Tony, thanks for the support. We're going to the final. Pretty sick. It is pretty sick, yes. Good luck, girls. Memories to last a lifetime. For Agnello and Sammy and Master Control, follow us on our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. And follow us on Twitter at SickPod, CFMTL. It's a Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.